renouncer. Guna Atita, transcendental to the material modes of nature. Sa He Uchate is said to be. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila H.G.Akinchan Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sorry? I'd be happy if you'd like to do that. Okay, let's all repeat the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion, when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Now we'll read the purport by His Divine Grace, Srila H.G.Akinchan Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Arjuna submitted 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendentally situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When a living entity stays in this material world embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. Which mode are you under? When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification, but when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. But the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness, and he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self, he does not attempt anything. By such behavior, one becomes actually transcendentally situated. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshudam Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vidanti Swavadantikam Vanderam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Krishna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Ramasate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavane Vishwanam Satadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripasindhu Yaevacha Patitanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama illumination? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self in regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So when Srila Prabhupada first arrived in Boston, Massachusetts, in America, after his trip from the Jaladuta, to start his preaching mission alone, without any help, he wrote this poem, Markine Bhagavat Dharma, they call it. And he starts by saying, imagine, Srila Prabhupada just came to Boston in the mid-60s. My dear Lord, you are so kind upon this useless soul that I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you must have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. So when Srila Prabhupada came to America, he saw these people that are so covered by the lower modes of material nature. How will they ever understand Krishna consciousness? So this 14th chapter, the three modes of material nature, is about transcending the modes of material nature. And Krishna says this knowledge is the best knowledge. He says, knowing this is the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So how important it is to know about the three modes of material nature. Prabhupada says, most knowledge is mixed with the material modes of nature. What we're hearing from Krishna is transcendental knowledge. There are so many scholars and philosophers who are so confident about their various types of knowledge in different fields. But if we want transcendence, then we should hear from the right source. We should hear from a transcendental source because we want knowledge that's free from the modes of passion and ignorance. What are those modes? Krishna explains very interestingly. The whole material energy, or the Brahman, is impregnated by Krishna. Where does life ultimately come from? Ultimately, life comes from a living source, the supreme living source, from Krishna. And life is impregnated into this material nature. People are thinking that life is a product of the material nature, and that's a very wrong idea. And it's an unprovable idea. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada made the book Life Comes from Life to challenge that idea. He says they say billions of years ago there was nothing but lifeless matter, and that matter somehow or other combined in such a way to create life. But we don't accept that. So Krishna explains, originally the living entity is distinct from the material nature. That's the important point. And when the living entity comes in contact with the material nature, he becomes conditioned. He becomes conditioned. Conditioned. And what are those three modes of material nature? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. The mode of goodness is the most pure. By goodness, one becomes free from sin. One can be elevated to higher statuses in the material world. But the downside is one may become conditioned to a type of happiness and knowledge. Prabhupada explains, and it's in our Shastra in many places, just like you may have an elevated Brahmin, he's not fully in the transcendental position. Like when Krishna went to beg alms, or Krishna's friends went to beg alms after the Govardhan Yajna from the Brahmins, they couldn't recognize him. They were conditioned by the mode of goodness. And later, after their wives served Krishna and his friends, they cursed their position of the mode of goodness. To hell with our learning and our austerities, and our sacrifices, and our celibacy, etc. We didn't understand the supreme goal. So, while it's the most pure, it has its limitations. The mode of passion is characterized by unlimited desire and longing, and binds one to fruitive activity in the material world. And the result of being absorbed in the mode of passion is that, well, Prabhupada says, by materialistic activity, no one has ever become happy. And generally the result is that one will continue on like that. People in the mode of passion will continue to stay in the mode of passion. And those in the mode of ignorance is characterized by darkness, inertia, laziness, sleep. The result of the mode of ignorance is foolishness. Sorry? Foolishness, madness. And the result is one will tend to degrade towards the animal kingdom. Prabhupada also explains in the purports of this chapter, formerly, human civilization was in the mode of goodness. Now it tends to be more in the mode of passion. And also, especially because Brahminical culture is not maintained, and because cow killing is very prominent, so those things are in the mode of darkness. Prabhupada says in one place, this modern society is condemned, especially because cow killing is so excessive. So Krishna says, when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. And Prabhupada makes very nice comments here, which are going to lead us to where we are today. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn this science of activities in terms of the modes of material nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. So Arjuna's asking, he's asking about people who have transcended. By which symptoms is one known who was transcendental to these modes of material nature? What's his behavior? The verses that we're talking about today are especially dealing with his first two questions. What are the symptoms and what is the behavior? And it's important to know for a few reasons. The main one is we need to find people that are above the modes of material nature, or find a person, if we're even so fortunate, and take shelter of those people. We need to hear from them. We need to learn from them. We need to inquire from them. We need to submit to them. We need to absorb their example and try to embody that and try to aspire for that example ourselves. So I was thinking of a few examples. Srila Prabhupada's example is very wonderful. Today I was reading one famous story. It's written about in the Lilamrita. Srila Prabhupada preached at the mantra rock dance in San Francisco in the early days of the Hare Krishna movement. He had already established some following in New York. That was his first place. And his second place was to preach in San Francisco. And the moods of those two yatras was a little different. The New Yorkers were a little more straight and conservative, apparently. The San Francisco team was a little bit more, out of the ordinary. Eccentric. And so they made a dance. They made something called the mantra yoga, the mantra rock dance. Yeah, everyone's heard of that? And so they made a huge program for Srila Prabhupada where they invited all of the cool hippie rock and roll bands of the time. They made big propaganda. They got thousands of people to come. They sold tickets, and by all descriptions, it sounds like an incredibly Tamasic atmosphere. Yeah, right. The big band was called The Grateful Dead. That's an amazing name. So Prabhupada went to that place, but he was neutral. He wasn't disturbed. He wasn't attached. What does it say? He didn't hate illumination. It means he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion. Illumination means the mode of goodness, attachment, the mode of passion, and delusion means the mode of ignorance. So he went to such a degraded place. In all of his preaching, he went to so many degraded places. But his mind wasn't changed.
When he walked in, because of his nature, everyone parted to allow him to go.
Thank you. Everybody parted to make way for Srila Prabhupada. I was reading the chapter in Mukunda Maharaj's book. He said, he was so thrilled by how excited, by how successful the whole thing had been. The whole place was packed. He said, when I looked out into the audience, I thought, it looks like everyone here is intoxicated. He himself, there was like some sound guy or something. He said, hey, we just made some special Japanese tea. Please take some. He said, no, thank you. No, really, we insist. He took some and understood there must be some horrible intoxicant in this tea. So Anyway, the New York devotees had objected. So Srila Prabhupada, he went there. He was with Allen Ginsberg, who glorified Prabhupada and explained the importance of chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada gave a short class or explanation of the chanting. He explained that Krishna, don't think Krishna is a Hindu god. God means God for everyone. And the chanting of Hare Krishna, what does it mean? What does it mean? Chanting Hare Krishna is to elevate us beyond the modes of material nature. And everybody chanted and danced. They all did the Swami step. Sorry? Stay high forever. Stay high forever. That was from the New York devotees. But anyway, the culture was very prominent back then. So, and then Prabhupada, Allen Ginsberg, I understood he started the chanting, and then Prabhupada took over, and the bands in the background, started playing their instruments. One nice devotee told me the different instruments may manifest according to the different modes of material nature. The same instrument in the mode of goodness is a sitar. In the mode of passion, it becomes a guitar. And in the mode of ignorance, it becomes an electric guitar. So Prabhupada is chanting, and they've got all of their tamasic music going on in the back. And I hope I find it now. Just the way the story ends is so nice. At a certain point they end the chanting, and Prabhupada made the comment, "This is no place for a brahmachari." Then the next day, people came to the temple from that. The next morning, people were coming from the kirtan. It looked like people had probably stayed up all night. Even Allen Ginsberg had told all of the people, with a completely straight face, LSD will, sometimes the mind becomes imbalanced by taking LSD. I highly recommend everyone should go to the kirtans with the Swamiji to rebalance the mind when recovering from, a night of wild intoxication, something like that. Later that morning, while riding to the beach with Kirtananda and Hayagriva, Swamiji asked how many people had attended last night's kirtan. When they told him, he asked how much money they had made, and they said they weren't sure, but it was approximately $1,500. I understood about 4,000 people maybe went to that. Srila Prabhupada, half audibly, he chanted in the back of the car, looking out the window as quiet and unassuming as a child, with no indication that the night before he had been cheered and applauded by thousands of hippies. In other words, Srila Prabhupada was entirely detached from any kind of honor or dishonor. That's one of the important qualities. Who had stood back and made a grand aisle for him to walk in triumph across a strobe-lit floor amid the thunder of electric basses and pounding drums of the Avalon Ballroom. For all the fanfare of the night before, he remained untouched, the same as ever in personal demeanor. He was aloof, innocent, and humble, while at the same time appearing very grave and ancient. Very beautiful, right? This is a description of someone beyond the modes of material nature. As Kirtananda and Hayagriva were aware, Swamiji was not of this world. They knew that he, unlike them, was always thinking of Krishna. nice illustration.
This was written by
I think, no, that was from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita that I just read. But I also I wanted to hear what Mukund Maharaj wrote. He wrote that book, Miracle on 2nd Avenue, because I read that chapter as well and learned a few details there. And now, it's almost time is over. It's funny, I didn't even start to talk about what I wanted to say. One of the most beautiful classes that I can think of while preparing for this class about transcending the modes of material nature is the story in the Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur describing the glories of Haridas Thakur. I can read some description and summarize it in a bit. This is someone who has transcended the modes of material nature. Haridas had absolutely no attraction for material enjoyment. The holy name of Lord Krishna continuously vibrated on his tongue, creating an extraordinary beauty about his mouth. Never for a moment did he feel any apathy towards his chanting of the holy name of Krishna. He remained absorbed, tasting the nectar of devotional service. He occasionally danced in ecstasy or cried in lamentation, while other times he lay still in a state of unconsciousness. Sometimes he spoke in mysterious languages and later explained the meaning of his words. All the ecstatic symptoms of love of Krishna were manifested in him. So Haridas was a highly elevated, saintly person, and local Muslim authorities were envious of him. And because he had been born in a Muslim family but was acting like a Hindu, they decided to punish him. They said, what sort of mentality has overcome you? Knowing you have the good fortune to be a Muslim, why do you behave like a Hindu? We do not even accept rice touched by a Hindu, yet you want to ignore your high birth and become a low-caste Hindu. To discard your own race, land, and religion for another is perverted. How do you expect to attain the liberated platform if you behave like this? I have decided to punish you according to the mandates of the Quran, so that you will be free from your sins. So what mode of material nature is preferable around there? Sorry? That is a passionate understanding. Exactly. And now we'll hear, by contrast, transcendental conception. Haridas patiently listened to the threats and accusations of the Nawab, recognizing his words as the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Without any apprehension, Haridas simply smiled at the Nawab and spoke in a sweet, soothing voice. My dear sir, there is only one God for all living entities. That's the same thing Prabhupada explained at the Lancharak days. The difference between the Muslim God and the Hindu God is in name only. According to knowledgeable Hindus and Muslims, and according to every scripture, be it Quran or Purana, God is one. He is the non-dual, eternal, transcendental, and absolute truth, infallible and perfectly complete, and in that capacity, He resides in everyone's heart. Anyway, they were so envious. They said, my friend, the Nawab again, he said, just speak from your own scripture. Then you will have nothing to fear. Otherwise, the Qazi present will force me to punish you. Haridas replied, whatever the Supreme Lord desires is destined to happen. There is no one who can check it. Each one of us suffers according to the degree of his previous offenses. You should know without a doubt that you are merely an instrument of the Lord's desire. Even if my body is cut into pieces and I lose my life, I will never give up chanting the Lord's holy name. That was also explained, completely detached from my body is comfortable or uncomfortable, it's cut to pieces. The Nawab heard the fearless reply of Haridas Thakur and said, what is your judgment? Lash him in 22 marketplaces until he dies, replied the envious Qazi. There is no other judgment I find appropriate. If he lives despite the punishment, then I will conclude that our big scholar has spoken the truth. So they did like that. They went from marketplace to marketplace, beating Haridas Thakur. Haridas was a pure soul, completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord, so he faithfully chanted Lord Krishna's holy name. So absorbed was he in the fervent chanting, he did not feel any pain. Good-hearted and pious people could not bear to see the torture inflicted on such an innocent person. They begged. Some begged the sentries to stop, while others predicted if they continue to torture this good man, the entire kingdom will be ruined. Many of them cursed the king to die, while others tried to stop the sentries physically. Someone pleaded, I will give you any reward you like if you stop this merciless beating. But none of these protests evoked the slightest mercy from the sentries who continued to drag Haridas Thakur from one marketplace to another. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Haridas felt little pain in his body. Just like Prahlad in the Srimad Bhagavatam, who was tortured by demons, Haridas never suffered at all. Not only was Haridas freed from his pain, whoever remembers the story of Srila Haridas will also be saved from the miseries of life. Throughout his ordeal, Haridas's one emotion was pity for the sentries. O Lord Krishna, please be merciful upon these poor souls so they may not be punished because of me. Finally, they begged Haridas Thakur, if you don't die, then Qazi will punish us. And Haridas decided, yes, okay, my being alive will be a disturbance to you, and I will die. And he went into some type of samadhi. Eventually, when his body was to be pushed into the water of the Ganga, he became so heavy that it was impossible to move. The strongest sentries came forward to push him into the water, but he remained in deep trance and could not be moved. Haridas had already drowned in the ocean of love of Lord Krishna and had no perception of the world around him. He knew not if he were still embodied or wandering somewhere in the universe or deep in the water of the Ganga. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, another incredible, supreme example of someone who has transcended the modes of material nature. Haridas Thakur had the ability to constantly remember the Supreme Lord. Such an extraordinary capability was not surprising, for Haridas's heart was the permanent resident of Lord Gaurachandra. Anyway, Haridas Thakur eventually he emerged from the Ganga, and he was just in a completely transcendental mood. And when those Muslim authorities saw him like that, they recognized his exalted position and surrendered. Anyway, sorry we've gone over time. We'll leave it there. If there's any questions or comments.
Actually, this was such a wonderful class. I almost hate to ask this question because it's in a different mood, a slightly different mood. Prabhupada in the purport, in the beginning of the purport, 7 lines down, when he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will be automatically forgotten. So this first sentence, when he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of material modes of nature. It's somehow or other a little ambiguous. Does anybody feel like that? When he is out of...
It means when you're liberated from the material world.
But as long as he's not out of the material body, he should be neutral.
Like, I don't know, maybe you can say even Srila Prabhupada, like at the end of his life, it's not that, I read someone said like this, you can't say that a pure devotee, although in the case of Haridas Thakur, it seems he didn't even feel any pain. It may be that a pure devotee may have the experience of the modes of nature, like Srila Prabhupada may have had some experience of pain or being sick, but in terms of his consciousness, he was able to stay transcendental.
It remained neutral.
Remain neutral. To get to the point where there's just absolutely no connection, and one has to be liberated. That's satisfying.
So that sentence, when he is actually out of the body, when he is actually out of the body, he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. So maybe this is what is being described when you're telling the story of Haridas Thakur. He was out of the material body, I guess. Did we say that? Did we say that he's out of the material body? He didn't even feel any pain.
Yeah, somehow Krishna protected him, and Prahlad Maharaj as well. And the Mahaprakash, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I took all his lashes on my own back.
So Krishna got the
So is Haridas Thakur out of his material body? That's the question.
well, I wanted to understand what it meant when you're actually out of the body. So,
I mean, the simplest explanation is...
in the context, I suppose that would be it.
Sorry? Yeah. Out of bodily consciousness.
body or actually leaving the soul in the body? Or what is supposed to be?
Well, a liberated person that has no material body, I would think they would be the prime example of being out of bodily consciousness. Like in the Lilamrita, I remember there's one period where Prabhupada had some terrible health thing. He was in a hospital. They gave him an injection. Linda said something like, wasn't it painful, Prabhupada? And his answer was, we tolerate. So,
There's also the example of anesthesia and
I'm sorry?
there was another example, they gave him anesthesia and he didn't lose consciousness.
Wow.
So I think it was Gardamonia.
So Prabhupada got his anesthesia injection and he didn't lose consciousness. And so I think it was Gargamuni who was there and said, Prabhupada, it's supposed to make you go, lose consciousness. Oh, and then he just,
Wow.
and Prabhupada just, put his eyes. But it was still, his fingers were still chanting through the entire time.
Wow. That's very nice. That's very nice.
So I guess that's the answer, that you're out of this body. This body is a material body. So you're just in your spiritual body.
That seems like that would be the most complete position of being detached and, beyond the most material nature.
Because we're looking what it means, someone who transcends.
As long as you're in the body, there may be some connection with the modes, but one will be neutral and not materially affected.
Isn't this sentence refers to a pure devotee? Only to pure devotee? Because of
Well,
what
it says,
means...
as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. So it's like an instruction. Even for us, we're experiencing different honor, dishonor, pain or pleasure. We should be detached from them. We should be neutral about those things.
So I can understand that the pure devotee, as soon as he leaves body, he liberated. But the ordinary living being, when he leaves gross body, he still in a settled body, the material body, settled body, and goes through another body after some times. So this refers only to pure devotee, who leaves immediately the gross body as well as the settled body. Immediately goes like that.
This is not talking about that. This is talking about attachment to the body.
I just wanted to mention for those of you who have come very rarely, we have such a nice Bhagavad Gita class and such nice association every night. So please join us and give us your satisfaction.
Judge, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you very much for such a nice class.
Она закончилась.
क्या স্পেশাল প্রসাদ?
আপনি যে ওই ভিডিওগুলো দিয়েছেন না, কতগুলোর মধ্যে ওগুলো সাউন্ডই আসছে না।
সাউন্ড আসছে না কিন্তু আমি জানি না, কিন্তু তা তো কিন্তু আমি জানি না, কেন ওগুলো আমি রেকর্ডিং করি নাই।
এমন রেকর্ডিং করেছে যে কতগুলো
সাউন্ড আসছে না, কেন সাউন্ড আসতে লাগে সব
অনেকগুলো সাউন্ড আসছে না।
এটা কালকের এগুলো
এগুলো কোনোদিনও খারাপ হয় না।
সাউন্ড আসছে না তাহলে আমি জানি না, কেননা রেকর্ডিং
তো ওগুলো কি করে তাহলে সাউন্ড বাড়ানো যাবে?
সাউন্ড কম আসছে,
একদম কম, শোনা যায় না। কি করে বাড়ানো যাবে তাহলে?
কেমন সাউন্ড কম আসবে?
আমি দেখাবো আপনাকে। আমি সবগুলোতে নাম লিখেছি, আর তারপরে এত সাউন্ড কম, বাপরে। খুব মুশকিল বাবা।
এটা কি
সাউন্ড যদি না হয় তাহলে কি করে বোঝা যাবে, কি করে শোনা যাবে?
বাথরুম?
বাথরুম না, স্টোর রুম, এইগুলো সব যাবে ওর মধ্যে।
আমি এই দিকে বাড়ি যাই।
One, 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 one,